Greetings, fellow Whovians, and welcome to Timey Wimey Review and my review of the final adventure for the 10th Doctor, The End of Time Part 2, originally broadcast on BBC One on New Year's Day 2010. If you have not seen part 1 of this review already, you can do so in the descriptions below, but to get you all up to speed, the Master is in control of Earth by duplicating himself into the human race, thanks to a device created by the Vimbocci and Joshua Naismith. However, there is something of more great importance as the Time Lords are making their return, bringing with them the devastation of the Time War as they plan to impose upon the universe their final end. With a little help from the Vimbocci and Wilf, who is concerned over Donna Noble's safety, the 10th Doctor takes his final stand against his own people, which will surely cost him his life. I want to start off with talking about Timothy Dalton as the Time Lord President, or Rassilon, and he really was a great guest star for Doctor Who. Really good stage presence. The mannerisms, the voice, he was amazing in this role. Just refusing to die, and you just saw the look on his face. He was just a person who was hell bent in achieving his goals, whatever it took. Honestly, it was a really good performance from him. Obviously we've seen him in various roles, most notably James Bond. But like I said, it was a great guest star for this two-part finale. And to be honest, I would like to see a spin-off of Rassilon. How he got to this stage of madness or devastation from the Time War. What made him go down this very dark path of ending the universe as the Time Lords ascend out of their own sort of body and become a state of living consciousness. And I think that's something that they could do, obviously, with a bit of backing, especially Russell T Davies back at the helm. I'm sure spin-offs are going to follow in some shape or form, but if I was going to pick something, I would pick this. Even bringing Timothy Dalton back, maybe like an older Rassilon, or even just like a voiceover, like he did as a narrator in part 1 on the End of Time. I would have something like that, and have maybe like a younger version of Rassilon, just trying to survive the Time War, and like I said, how it led to these horrible actions. I also want to talk a little bit about the special effects. Now, it's only a tiny nitpick really for me, but I felt that the CGI spaceship and the missile attack scene as the spaceship was speeding its way back to Earth was a little bit too overambitious for BBC budgets, but I think they did well with the budget that they have and the technology that they had at the time. And don't get me wrong, I do love that scene. It is a bit cheesy. The one thing that I was probably more of a nitpick about was the sound effects for the spaceship sounding like some kind of cartoon rocket from the 40s and 50s. Couldn't they find something else in the library to use? Something a bit more sort of, I don't know, updated rather than that whooshing noise. But again, it's a fun scene to have, and I think it needed it because obviously there was a lot of heavy stuff going on. But it was a fun scene. I just watched it again recently before doing this video, and I did smile at it with Wilf flying around in that sort of turret box, shooting lasers out, knocking these missiles out. Good on you, Wilf. The good effects, I would say, was the look of Gallifrey and the Citadel during the Time War. It was in pieces. The inside of the Citadel was in ruins. That scene where Rassilon is walking towards the council room and it's just all falling apart and lights flickering. It looked really good. I was very impressed with those effects. Still definitely holds up today. And I'd have to give bonus props to the effects for the Master being all those multiple people around the world. That must have been very time consuming to do, and especially for John Sim, changing every costume and being like the news reporter or the president or one of the military leaders or one of the Joshua Naismith's personal guards, or even Sylvia Noble or Sean Noble. It's Sean Temple, I should say. Yeah, that must have been very time consuming, but definitely worked well. What this episode had going for it was the dramatic scenes and performances from David, Bernard, John, and Timothy. All those scenes just really helped. You know, if from the quieter scenes between the Doctor and Wilf, or even the Doctor and Master, really, with the Master saying about the White Point Star, and obviously that shocking revelation for the Doctor, finding out that Gallifrey is returning, something is returning, and that scene with the Doctor holding the gun, pointing it between the Master and Rassilon is so good. And actually props to John Sim on that one, where he was sort of like tables were turning all the time. You know, kill the president, don't kill me, you'll never will do, you coward. Loved all that from John Sim. And when he was launching the missiles at the Doctor on the spaceship, I've got Time Lords to spare, wipe him out. Loved all that. Again, John Sim taking a little bit of a backseat in part 2 after the great build-up of his return in part 1, but still had some fantastic moments, and obviously that little redemption at the end when he gets out of the way and fires all those energy bolts. And it was a good, nice wrap up story arc for that incarnation of the Master, you know, introducing the sounds of drums going in his head over and over again, and where that came from and how that kind of, you know, bit the Time Lords on the backside. Most people remember is what I would like to call the trilogy of Doctor and Wilf moments. We started that off in the cafe scene in part 1, and we carried it on into part 2, the quiet scene between the Doctor and Wilf, with Wilf trying to convince the Doctor to take his gun, kill the Master before he kills you, and the Doctor refusing. And, you know, it's just a quiet moment, but there was some really good back and forth between David and Bernard. Obviously, even more so with what I said in part 1 about Dear Bernard. But obviously, that all cumulated into that final scene where the Time Lords had been vanquished and the Doctor felt that everything was done. He was alive, he's kicking, ready to, you know, he's cheated death, and then all you hear is, and poor Wilf stuck in that Bimbocci casing, and it's all gone critical. And just the music from Murray Gold and the look on David's face just said it all, and I got suckered in. I remember watching that first time and suckered in, thinking, oh my god, maybe he is alive, maybe it's just another red herring when we had the 10th Doctor cheating death in Journey's End. Maybe he's you know, maybe we're going to have another series of the 10th Doctor, and then and you're like, oh no, not Wilf. Please, not Wilf. And yeah, I know there's going to be arguments for and against this scene, because the Doctor being a bit sort of tantrumy and a bit sort of a little bit out of character, especially when he, you know, did offer his life to Wilf, and it was my honour. But to be honest, I think it's a solid piece of drama for me. I thought David and Wilf Bernard both played it brilliantly. David obviously bringing all the intensity into that scene, and I think it's more like the 7 stages of like guilt, remorse, denial. It was all happening, and obviously they had to wrap it. You know, they could have dragged it on for minutes and minutes, but they didn't have that time. So yeah, it probably did feel a little bit rushed and out of character, but it worked. And you know, obviously the Doctor saying, you know, you're not important, but me, I can do so much more. And yeah, David sold it for me. Absolutely fantastic scene. Absolutely loved it. But the 10th Doctor does get a reward of sorts by at least having one last goodbye to former companions. And I've seen arguments on comments on social media and other posts that this was a little bit overindulgent, but I felt like this was a goodbye to Russell T Davies's world, and obviously with him leaving after this episode, as well as David, and obviously the production crew as well. And yeah, I enjoyed them. I loved the little Easter egg bonus of Verity Newman, sort of tying up the loose ends from Human Nature, Family of Blood. Obviously, the wrapping up between Martha and Mickey. I think Martha deserved a bit better, to be fair. The Doctor rescuing Luke outside Bannerdale Road. Sarah Jane Smith seeing that final goodbye, and again, Liz Sladen just sold everything, really. Again, a great performance. She knew what was going on, but knew that this wasn't going to be the end as well. That was really cool. John Barrowman getting Alonso. Fair enough. That was a nice little cheeky number with obviously the Devil in Me musical number going on in the background and all the rest of the aliens. I thought that was a nice little piece as well. And then finally we have the Doctor meeting Rose on New Year's Day 2005. It just all wrapped up together, and yeah, I can see the arguments for and against, but I'm for this. I thought it was a bit over the top indulgence. It kind of reminded me a little bit of John Pertwee's final story, The Planet of Spiders, where sort of behind the scenes you had all of John Pertwee's favourite actors to perform with, like John Darth, obviously Unit coming back, and that that crazy chase scene in part 2. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of that. There was sort of similarities of that kind of goodbye, and a deserving goodbye. Like for John at the time, he was the longest serving Doctor at that point before Tom Baker, and obviously how the UK fell in love with David Tennant as the 10th Doctor. I think that was a nice indulgent goodbye, and deservedly so, and it works. It still works for me then, and it worked for me now. I'm going to give The End of Time Part 2 a TARDIS rating of 7 out of 10. It's not a solid 7 out of 10. I would say it's more of a soft one. It just ticks over that 7 out of 10 mark. I do think if you take away the final 10 minutes, I do think part 1 was a bit stronger on paper than part 2, but I felt that part 2 wrapped up everything quite nicely, especially sort of how they got out of the cliffhanger for Donna Noble, and her reward at the end was just nice. Again, I think I mentioned this in another video before. Obviously Donna got a wedding and won the lottery. Poor Dan with the 13th Doctor got diddly squat. But back to this, and yeah, the Time Lords was kind of dealt with quite easily after their great build up. Like I said, part 1 was stronger on paper, I felt, than part 2. But yeah, then you get that final 10 minutes, and obviously the great drama performances from everyone involved. It was stunning. It was great to see some great scene stealers throughout this episode. So don't write it off. Is it the most strongest story out of the history of Doctor Who? No, for me it felt like event television. We was all there to say goodbye to the 10th Doctor, and a lot of people, when I first watched this back in 2010, I had to wait a few more hours because I was working at a local supermarket, so I didn't get to watch this live. Thank God there was no spoilers, and social media was a little bit more quieter back then. So I just got home, straight away watched it, and at the end I was bummed out that one of my favourite incarnations of the Doctor, obviously, David Tennant was going away, especially when he said that immortal line. Yeah, I was absolutely bummed out. And I remember watching it with my friend one night a few months later, and she was roaring her eyes out all over again. It's those types of things. So yeah, like I said, it's not the most strongest, but yeah, it's just event television, and you just have those memories of what you felt like when you first watched this episode, and that's what it felt to me. I was definitely bummed out, didn't know what to do with myself after that episode ended, but boy, we got Matt Smith. You know, if we was ever going to have a swap, that was a fantastic swap, and you know, and the story continues. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts of part 2 of The End of Time. Do you prefer this episode to part 1, or do you think part 1 was better than part 2? Or is this your favourite regeneration episode, scene, story? Love to know all your thoughts in the comments. And this is my final review of the year. So I hope you all have a great new year. Happy New Year. Roll on 2023. Some great reviews coming up. Next time on Timey Wimey Review, I will be reviewing the 13th Doctor, first 13th Doctor New Year's special resolution. But until then, thank you very much for watching as always. Thank you for the upsurge in subscribing numbers as well. I'm only 7 away at this point from 300, so I'd love to get to 300 before the this channel's 2nd year birthday in January. Got that to come up as well. So please like, share, subscribe, hit the cloister bell for more notifications. Come say hello and follow me on Twitter at ReviewTimey. And please do check out my other videos from the Timey Wimey Review YouTube channel from the past, present, and obviously future. And as the good doctor once said, I don't want to go